Hi everyone. So I've been doing some maintenance on my wheelchair, and I want to take just a minute to share with you the spring cleaning to my wheelchair stem bearing housing. So first, some definitions. A stem bearing is what allows a wheelchair to drive around the corner, around objects, and generally veer to the left or veer to the right. The stem bearing housing is how the wheels, the little wheels, attach to your wheelchair. The stem bearing itself is what bends when the wheelchair is going around a corner, or if you're driving down the street around a parked car or a puddle. This is a look at the photograph of the inside of one of my wheelchair stem bearing housing. What I want you to see is the sand and grit that got in there. Even though the lid was on, sand and grit managed to get through the edges of this. It's really important that you do preventative maintenance to remove this buildup of sand and grit if you're using your wheelchair during the winter months. What happens is this will or has the ability to cause the bearing to seize and get stuck in place inside the wheelchair or to the bolt that goes through and the stem bearing is mounted onto. So I would suggest that after 2 months, you proactively get the bearing changed. That's halfway through your winter. This is for people who are out driving in the snow when roads have been sanded and salt's been used so that you can maintain your wheelchair. Otherwise, what you're going to find is that you're needing to use a Dremel metal cutting disc to get the old bearing off and change it if you wait. Because literally the salt will cause a chemical reaction to the metal, and it's just like welding two pieces of metal together. So halfway through the winter is my suggestion on when you take a look inside and see if it does indeed need to be cleaned out and changed. You do need to be careful though. When you remove the dust cap from the wheelchair in the stem bearing housing, you want to make sure that you're not bending it or denting it so that you can limit the amount of sand and grit and moisture that gets in there over time. There's various styles of housing for these. I've attached lid handles to my stem bearing housing so that I'm not using a screwdriver to pry the plastic up each time the bearings need to be changed. It's because plastic will eventually shave and you'll make a channel for sand and grit to go in there. So again, it's that idea of managing the maintenance on your wheelchair. And especially in this case, a little bit of prevention will save you a big headache when it comes time to do the maintenance on your particular wheelchair. There's really no way to avoid this from happening. It may not happen to the extent that you see here in this photo. The way that you would avoid it getting this bad is having the dust caps replaced after about 8 or 10 bearings have been changed in them. That would be about the 2-year mark for me because of how much I use the wheelchair to drive myself back and forth to the physiotherapy. You'll visually be able to see if the screwdriver is carving the plastic. You need to guard this preciously like it was gold to avoid the headache that comes with the maintenance when the stem bearings wear out. I sincerely hope this helps you and saves you from some of the headache I had a few weeks back. If you do get yourself stuck, again, it's a Dremel bit or a Dremel tool with a metal cutting bit that I personally would use. A grinding wheel, to me, isn't the answer for this situation because the depth of the grinding wheel has the potential to hit the metal of the fork that the bearing and wheel is mounted onto. A Dremel will help you do a much finer job of cutting off a seized bearing. I do remind you, make sure you use your personal protective equipment, hearing protection, eyesight, even gloves for your hand, and possibly a vest if there's a lot of metal flying. It's worth it in the long run. Thanks for the time that you spent with me today. Bye for now.